Yarn is way too expensive anymore, and I am determined to use this stuff. Have you ever bought a yarn that just absolutely drives you crazy to use? Well, I did, and it's just too expensive. You can't just not use it. I mean, inflation and shrinkflation has definitely hit the yarn category. So anyways, to make a long story short, I bought some everyday bobbins from Premier when they had it on sale. I think it was either $2.99 or $3.99, I don't remember. But I bought quite a bit of it. And I'm trying to make a shawl, and I'm fighting this yarn, and I have to be very, very deliberate with my stitches. You can't go fast. It is just, it's awful to work with. This is the colorway that I'm using. It's got like a steel gray, and then the black and steel, and then black. And so I'm on my second bobbin, and I'm still connected, so I don't want to pull out my stitches. It's too frustrating to work with to have to redo it. So this is the shawl that I'm working on. So I have used some other anti-pilling yarns before, not many, because I've always been one that's been limited to local areas to buy my yarn, and because I like to touch it, I gotta feel it. So then I got brave this past year and decided, on recommendations of other YouTubers that, you know, crochet and knit, to test out some yarns. And I happened to be watching Creative Grandma's channel, one of her videos. I don't even remember what it was about now, but I'm a comment reader. So I looked down in the comment section, and someone was telling her that Premier had these everyday bobbins on sale. So I go over to the website and check it out, and I check, you know, a couple times a week to see what they have on sale, what they have on clearance, you know, because yarn is expensive. You know, it is super, super expensive. And I was like, ooh, that's pretty good. You know, you get a decent amount of yardage for, you know, the $3 or $4, whatever it was. And so I picked out some colors. I jumped on the sale, and I bought quite a few. And then I went back and I bought some more. Hang on, car's coming. I'm sitting outside today because the weather is way nicer, and it's kind of chilly in my house, and I refuse to turn the heat on yet. This is Florida. It's November, and I'm just not ready to turn the heat on. I'm ready for a break on my electric bill. So we might hear a train, we might hear the chickens, we might hear cars coming by, we might hear some neighbors cursing, you know. It's hard to tell. It's pretty wild out here. But anyways, so I stocked up on this yarn, and I said, oh, let me find something to make with it, because at first when I got it, I was like, oh, I really like these colors. So I ordered some more, and that was without opening the spool and testing the yarn. Nope, I just said, oh, the colors look great. It looks nice. Let me get some more. So I did, with the intention of, I forget which color it is now because I haven't even opened the second box, but I was going to use it to make a blanket. And then I'm like, no, I want to make a shawl. So I look online and I find this interesting pattern to try, which is super difficult to read the pattern. And because it's been translated from, I don't know what the original language is, to like multiple different languages. And the English translation isn't very good. So Like at the end of the row, it'll tell you you should have this many stitches of this and this many stitches of that, and the stitch count doesn't come out right. And so I've just been kind of winging it, trying to follow the basic pattern and then wing it to make it come out. But it's pretty. I mean, I like the stitch. There's a lot of texture to it. It's got popcorn stitches in it, and some ribbing from doing a front post and back post. And but the yarn feels nice. It feels really, really soft. But can that softness make me forgive the way it is to work with it? So let me show you what I'm talking about. So just hang on a second and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So if you were to just look at this yarn, it looks okay. You know, it looks like it's pretty well spun and, you know, like it would be easy to work with. But don't let looks be deceiving. So this is Premier's Anti-Pilling Everyday Bobbin. It's 3 balls in one. It's 543 yards. And I bought it on clearance or sale. I'm not sure if it was clearance or not. I don't remember. And it was like $2.99 or $3.99. And I bought a pretty good amount. So this isn't the color that I'm using on the shawl, but I picked this one because it's going to be a little easier for you to see. First off, this is what happens. You see all it's just like coming apart. So I'll show you what it's like to work with this. I have to be very deliberate with my stitch. You can see how it's kind of separates as you're working with it. I feel like I've taken several spools of thread and I'm trying to crochet with all the spools at the same time. Oh, see? Now I've worked with yarns where sometimes splitting can be an issue, but this is all the time, constantly. And if you're not careful about your stitch and very deliberate with it, see how it's separated? So if you're not very deliberate with your stitch, you get pieces that aren't in your work. And these little strings just hanging out. Looks like, you know, like on your clothes when you have a loose thread just sticking out. That's what it kind of looks like. The hook will get hung up on those threads, and you start pulling on them, and then you get stuff like this. Oh, can you see that? Right there. Little thread sticking out. And it's just, if you're a fast crocheter, this definitely is not for you. Because you have to be very careful with your stitches so that you don't have all these little snaggy things like that sticking out. And because it does separate, you might not grab all the threads and pull them through. See? This is not an easy yarn to work with. And yarn is expensive, so I try to take advantage of those sales. Oh my goodness. It's very frustrating to work with. Oh my goodness. And I find myself frogging out rows because I'll get going along and then I'll notice this string hanging out and I have to pull it out and redo it. And yeah, so I'm not real thrilled about this yarn, but because yarn is expensive, I am determined to use this stuff. Now, the one nice thing that I'll say about this yarn, it's very soft. It feels super nice. And for me, how the yarn feels is has a lot to do with whether or not I pick it. But when you shop online, you can't feel it. You don't get to touch it. You're just like reading the reviews and going by what other people say, and everybody, has different things that they like. And to sit there and have a yarn like this that just falls apart, separates with all the strings, it's like working with individual threads and just holding them together. I mean, and it's not just the tip that does it, it's through the whole thing. As you're working with it, it's just like super loosely spun together. I don't know. I mean, I've tried a couple of other types of anti-pilling yarn, and I've had that happen a little bit, but not like this. So whenever I work through this massive hoard that I bought of this stuff, will I ever buy it again? Heck no. Because it's too frustrating to work with. But it does feel good. So did you see what I meant? It's like sitting there holding 5 or 6 different spools of thread and trying to catch all those little threads at the same time on your hook. And then if it snags, you're having to frog it and go back and fix it so you don't have that little wild thread just hanging out. So you have to be super deliberate with your stitches and go slow. But it feels nice. I mean, the finished product, when you've crocheted it together, it feels really nice. But I don't know if that is enough for me to forgive the struggle of crocheting with it. But like I said, yarn is way too expensive anymore, and I am determined to use this stuff. I'm going to finish my shawl, and then I'm going to figure out what I am going to make with the rest of my yarn. I'm not sure if it would be a good one to do tutorials with, because I have to fight with the yarn so much, unless you enjoy seeing somebody fight with yarn. I mean, what the heck? So, I don't know. I'll still keep buying yarn online. And I usually do the sale or the clearance because I can buy like one or two and then I can see if I like it. And then if I do like it, I can go back and I can buy more of that type or that line because, hey, it feels pretty good. I mean, that's how I found the Premier Basics, was by testing it out online. And I like that way better than Red Heart Super Saver, I can tell you that. I mean, it's still a budget yarn, and you can tell it's a budget yarn, but it's a lot nicer to work with than the Red Heart Super Saver. And I hear a chicken coming. Oh, you can see it behind me, the tail. So yeah, if anybody didn't know, a couple of years ago, actually Christmas Eve will be 2 years, we have this neighbor that's behind us that had, oh God, 40 or 50 chickens or whatever. And they would come over into my yard and just tear everything up. But they were laying their eggs in the yard. Well, he also had some roosters back there, so the chance of having some fertile chicken eggs were pretty good. And he had one hen that he couldn't figure out why or how, but it had a couple of chicks. So I got to sit here and watch the little chicks run around. I'm like, they're so cute. Well, then he put them in chick jail. He took them away so I couldn't watch them anymore. So it's getting into like November-ish, and the hens were starting to slow down on laying eggs, but I was determined. So I got myself an incubator and gathered up, I want to say I had like 9 eggs that I could fit into this incubator, and I got them started. And after, you know, a week or so, did the whole candling thing, and I could say I had 4 or 5 fertile eggs. I want to say it was 5. There were 5 fertile eggs. And I tried to time it, you know, because they tell you approximately how long it takes for a chicken egg to hatch. So I tried to time it that they would be hatched on Christmas. Well, I'm sitting there and it's Christmas Eve, and all of a sudden I see this flopping around in the incubator, and I have a baby chick. And I was like, ah, cool. So that one's name is Eve. And then nothing happened on Christmas Day, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. And then the day after Christmas, another one hatched, and then another one hatched. And then I could see that there was one more that was wiggling around, and you can see it, you know, breaking holes through the eggshell. So I ended up with 4 chickens. And I'm looking at these chickens, and I can hear a neighbor talking, and I hope she doesn't start swearing. We've got some pretty rough neighbors around here. Anyways, so I've got these 4 chickens, and I put them in a little tote. And then after, less than a week, one of them, the first one that hatched, Eve, she jumps up on the ledge of it, and I'm like, oh, no, that's it. So I had, what do you call it? Like a dog kennel for our dog. So we got that out and put them in that. By this point, you know, they're getting big enough to where they can't squeeze through the grating of the kennel. And they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, well, this one's little tail looks different from these other 3's little tail. So maybe Eve is going to be a Steve instead of an Eve, you know, because he had this little triangle thing on it and the other 3 didn't. And I thought, well, that's got to be for the rooster tail. Well, it turns out I was wrong. I had 3 roosters and 1 hen. And that wasn't the point of it. And roosters are mean, let me tell you. All 3 of them look different. I mean, the coloring and everything. The prettiest one we named Houston. And, well, it got that name because at first we thought they were girls. And so we named it after Whitney Houston. So Houston ended up being vicious. He attacked Jenna a couple times. He come up behind me one day and come running up and jumped on my leg, and he drew blood on my leg. And I'm like, that is it. Jenna and I can't go outside without being attacked by these stupid birds. The roosters have to go. So we found some people that they actually raise chickens, and they needed some more roosters. So they took the 3 roosters off her hands. Well, then little Eve, she ended up being a girl. She was heartbroken. Don't ever let anybody tell you that these animals do not have feelings and build attachments and things like that. She cried and squawked and just paced up and down the ramp into her little house. And she's looking for her brothers and, you know, can't find them. So then we're like, we got to get her some friends. But supposedly you can't introduce chickens, you know, adult chickens with other chickens. So John got 2 other hens, and we kept them inside the kennel, inside the chicken coop, and let them introduce each other to themselves that way. Like, these 2 can't attack the other one because they're inside the little cage. Well, that night, Eve didn't even go up inside where she's supposed to sleep. She got up on top of that kennel and slept on top of that kennel because she wanted to be with these other birds. So we let them out, and they get along okay now. It's been, this Christmas will be almost 2 years that Eve is, that's not Eve, that's one of the other chickens. So this Christmas will be almost 2 years that Eve's been around. And the other 2, you know, they're probably a year older, but they were introduced a couple of months later. And they still treat her a little different. Like, she's not part of the group, but she is part of the group. I mean, she wants to be with them, and they just kind of pair up, you know. 2's company, 3's crowd. You know, he should have got 1, maybe 3, but then, I don't know, we end up with so many eggs, we give the eggs away. It's just like, you can't eat that many eggs. I'm not a baker. Anywho, long story, sorry about that. Yeah, so yarn's expensive. This is difficult to work with, but I am determined to use this yarn. Oh, there's Eve. See her right back here? Trying to get my finger to go the right way. There she goes. That's Eve. Yeah. So that's my little rant for today. You got a little story. Now you know a little bit more about me. I hear a train coming, so that is my cue to say bye. We will see you in the next video.